think one of the very, very interesting attributes that you must have as a business owner is initiative. And also I do believe it's very, very, let me say, a trait that you should have is to be open-minded too, because that what I do face is when I'm talking to businesses about the word surcharge as an example.
This is the Business Owners Smashing It Online podcast for entrepreneurs and business owners looking for cool online tools, apps and strategies to make business easy online. My name is Nik Cree and I'm your host. Each episode features a guest expert demystifying the online universe, sharing inspirational ideas and providing tested real-world strategies to help you get the most of what's available online to grow your business today. Don't be a slave to your business, get your business working for you. Subscribe now and get some great content and ideas for you and your business today. All right, well, this is the time in the evening, which is one of my favourite times, when we get to speak with someone who is an expert in their field and some real knowledge to share. So on screen we've got a good-looking chap, and his name is Mark Grant. He spent a ton of time in the banking industry. So worked for Westpac, worked in business banking, and was helping businesses with their business lending and their business needs, financially. But I think there must have been some point where Mark had said, "Hey, look, I've had enough. It's time to leave," or I don't know whether it was sort of an intentional leaving or got made redundant and sort of end up in the scrap heap of being older than the age of 30. So you're unemployable in business. So I do is what many of us have done and decide that the entrepreneurial seizure to start your own business is probably the best way to go. So Mark's a small business owner. He's been running his business Costless Payment Solutions for 4 years now, and he's offering some interesting and innovative ideas in business and finance for small business owners. So good to have you along, Mark, and thanks for being with us tonight.
Pleasure, Nick. Long time no see.
It has been, hasn't it? Mark and I go to a networking meeting every Thursday fortnight, so we see each other reasonably regularly as well. All right, well, look, tonight's going to be a wee bit different in that there's no presentation, but we're going to run it interview style. I don't think you've got a PowerPoint, have you, Mark? No, great. So we're going to run it interview style and really sort of draw out some of Mark's expertise and knowledge tonight. So probably first place to start is banking. When I think about banking, it never feels that exciting, really. But I know you, and you're a little bit more exciting than the topic itself with your sort of big banks. But maybe just tell us a wee bit about your backstory and how you got to be where you are today.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Thanks everyone for joining tonight too, and for those watching the recording. Yeah, as Nick stated, I spent over 20 years with Westpac, both in Brisbane and also here on the Gold Coast. I was actually struck by a lightning bolt, not literally, but that's what I like to refer to it as. I came to a crossroads in my career at Westpac where, pardon me, the continual pummeling of businesses, clubs and associations of fees and charges just didn't sit with me any longer. I just couldn't continue to do so. So I had to do what I thought was right by my conscience and leave. So as you can imagine, leaving an employer after 20 odd years is quite a big step to take. And so I had every intention of having a 6 month off to the Westpacify, as I call it. Unfortunately, the 6 months turned into pretty close to 3 years. Because as Nick mentioned in the intro, I'm on the other side of 50, and there's no such thing in our country here in Australia as age discrimination at all.
No, of course not.
Thanks for your comment, Martin, too. So, as what actually happened is I applied for 140 roles in my skill set here on the Gold Coast, not in banking, but just in relationship management and things of that nature. And so, had no luck. So I just thought, well, it's something's got to give. So, as they say, if you can't find a job, you've got to make it. So primarily that's what happened. So what actually happened is, as I said, I had almost 3 years unemployed. So it gave me a lot of time to think, a lot of time to plan. So what actually happened in September 2017, that's when a real sort of a crucial part of the puzzle presented itself to me. So what that was, is that was the federal government introducing surcharge law into our country. So it's a very, very interesting field. Without a word of a lie, and no disrespect to any of the people on the call this evening, if I was to go out into the street, whether I'd be in the Gold Coast, Brisbane, or Sydney, or I wouldn't go on the street in Melbourne, no disrespect. But if you went out in the street and you asked people what the surcharge laws are, I'll guarantee you'd get 10 different answers. Yeah, even in business, it's a little bit misunderstood. So I hope tonight that I can sort of allay a few of your fears, also wipe away a little bit of the doubts you may have about it. But yeah, that's sort of the background, Nick.
So we'll come back to that surcharge, because I didn't even know about it. Yeah, it's like, this is a really new thing for me. I've been in business for 20 odd years, and no clues about this. So I'm clueless about some areas, but we still get by. So 3 years unemployed, and then starting your own business. That must have been a fairly interesting period of time, I guess. I mean, self-esteem takes a bit of a hit, I guess, during that sort of time as well.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. And in the 3 years I was unemployed, I've got a nice piece of Italian hardware here behind me. You can't see it. It's a road bike, so I did a lot of cycling in that 3 years. Absolutely. Self-esteem did take a real dent. But in saying that, I just had to, I had my goals, and I firmly believed that here was a storm that I was in, and I was going to come out the other side of it, be a better person for it.
Yeah. Well, and look, it's interesting that, well, not interesting, but probably commendable also that having spent so many years in the corporate environment, then you step over to the other side, the people that you are helping, and join the rank and file of small business as well too. So I think one of the strengths that you obviously have is understanding both sides of that equation, because you've been in both sides of that equation as well too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, just in terms of banking, that's an interesting aspect in its own right. Like, as a banker, how did you view business, and how did you view business differently to how you are now being in business and viewing the banks?
We've got ladies on the call, Nick. I can't answer that question. Very, very good. Yeah, I've always thought of myself as a little different. I'm a little bit outside the square at times, and that's how I think. So when I was in the banking game, unfortunately, all I was doing is, whether I liked it or not, no disrespect meant to the shareholders of the banks, all I was trying to do was improve their returns. Because ultimately, that's what I was effectively doing, when I think about it. So what was really important to me, and it's sort of followed me, and it will stay with me while I'm in business as well, is that, quite simply, is if I'm helping a client now, you are not a one-off transaction to me. That's not who I am. It's not where I'm going. It's not who I want to be. So when a client does business with me, they're actually a client and friend for life. So, and what I intend to do during that period of our relationship is to impart over 20 odd years of banking and finance knowledge to them as well. And that's what I'm basically doing as well, in a day in, day out basis.
So it's, you talk about working in an institution that one of your major roles there is to provide a return for shareholders. Yet one of the things I see in small business is that we're often trying to provide a better return for our customers than we are for our shareholders, us being the shareholder. So many small businesses will go above and beyond to serve their customers, to make sure that they're happy and that they're the real winners in the equation, sometimes even at the expense of the business and the business owner. Anyone relate to that at all? So and I think possibly somewhere in the middle there is probably a happy medium for for business, where you're serving the shareholders and your customers. So a two-way transaction.
Yeah, absolutely. I think really I believe no matter what business you have now, and I don't care the size of your business, I think one of the very, very interesting attributes that you must have as a business owner is initiative. And also I do believe it's very, very, let me say, a trait that you should have is to be open-minded too, because it's quite often that what I do face is when I'm talking to businesses about the word surcharge as an example. Most people will say to me, Mark, I don't believe in it. Mark, never liked it. Mark, and as you know, Nick, here in Queensland, is that when we go and fill up our cars, we've got a fuel surcharge built into the fuel price. So if you don't like surcharge here in Queensland, yep, certainly do. The state government's got a surcharge built into the fuel price.
So tell us about these surcharges. What is it like? Like the petrol one, I do know about that one. I was just been flipping it with that. But you talk about surcharge laws. What's all that about?
Yeah. But as I said earlier on, back in September 2017, federal government brought into play a national law. That law, and I'm just going to abbreviate it as best I can for everyone. That law states that if you're in business, and a business club or association, I must elaborate there, and you're accepting a card payment for a payment of your goods or services, you're able to pass back to your consumer the cost of doing business for that transaction. Now, with those last few words, doing business for that transaction, that's where the grey area is and the question marks are around that. Because no matter if you are a Zaraffa's franchisee operating a coffee shop here on the Gold Coast, or whether you are a lawnmower person, or whether you're an accountant, you are being charged all different rates by your financial institution for the payment solutions that they have provided to you. So it's a real grey area, and I will stand by my work right now that there are a lot of people, I would hate to think how many are out there now who are presently charging their own private surcharge to their clients, but they are not complying with the law, and as a result of not complying with the law, face fines up to $126,000.
Wow. So it's a significant issue then. Absolutely.
I don't know about you, Nick. I don't have $126,000 in my back. Not last time I checked, anyway.
No, I think it's in the mattress somewhere. But yeah. So when you're talking about surcharges, what you're talking about is the fees that you get charged as a business for accepting credit cards, EFTPOS, debit cards, all that sort of thing. There.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. What I might do is I might just elaborate on that for a minute longer, and give everyone a real life example I came across. It was pre-COVID, so it was towards the end of last year. So I was up in Brisbane helping my sister and her husband do some renovations on their property up there. And the brother-in-law said, Mark, can you go to local hardware and pick up some bits and pieces, which, no problem. So I walked into this hardware store. All I needed, and was about to pay by my Mastercard. So I put everything through, and they're going to charge me 3%. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, that's a bit exorbitant. So luckily at that time I had some cash on me, so I paid for the goods using cash. Go forward a couple of weeks in time, I followed that up, because what was important to me is I would not feel comfortable in myself knowing that I'd come across someone there. I wasn't about trying to sell a product to that person in that business. I was more about providing an education around the surcharge. So I had no doubt in the world whatsoever that this particular business owner was passing on what he thought was the correct surcharge. So to give you an example, he, believe it or not, he had his EFTPOS facility with Westpac. So with Westpac, they were charging him on EFTPOS transactions, 60 cents a transaction. They were charging him with Mastercard and Visa, 2% per transaction. And with Amex, they were charging him 3%. So naturally, excuse me, he thought that he was well within his right to charge every cardholder. I don't care if you were using an EFTPOS card, Mastercard, Visa, or whatever. Every cardholder was charged 3%. So we had a little bit of an interesting discussion, himself and myself. And I just said to him, okay, look, sorry, you're not contravening with the law. And I thought, well, I'm going to give you two options here. I'm going to give you an option on which surcharge of the 60 cents per transaction, the 2%, that you can use to pass on to everyone. Unfortunately, he chose the wrong option again. He chose the 2%. So the moral of the story is, a business is able to pass on its own private surcharge. No issue whatsoever. However, in this example here, the only surcharge that hardware store could pass on to every cardholder was 60 cents a transaction, the lowest cost denominator. So the moral of the story there is, sure, he could pass on to everyone 60 cents, charge everyone 60 cents. However, Westpac would still charging $2 for Mastercard and Visa cards being used, and 3% for Amex. So the moral of the story is, he'd be going through the back door quicker than he knows it. So we spent some time, a few hours together, and I went through and just showed him, explained that I'm a bit of a drawer, to be honest with you. And so I showed him, what I was talking about there. And what I also did is I also calculated that if he was to pass on the surcharge that is now permitted by law to be done for every card going through, that I could save him over $80,000 a year in his bank fees.
Wow, $80,000.
$80,000 a year is paying to Westpac for his EFTPOS. Yep.
Wow. So you're not talking about chump change here. You're talking about significant money.
Yeah. I use that as an example because this particular gentleman, and I'm not denigrating him or attacking him in any shape or form. That's not who I am or not where I come from. It's just that there's a lot of people out in our broad open land that we have here running their business misinformed or uninformed. So that's why it was important to me to be able to have this as a platform tonight to try and educate people on what can be done and what to use and who to come to if they need questions asked.
So in terms of that surcharge, so what is that? What can you do? Like, obviously, if you charge the lowest amount that's permissible, that's within the law. But obviously, you're paying more than you need to on the surcharges. If you pay the highest amount, then you're obviously contravening the law because it's you're charging people more for it. So as I understand it, the law is really a cost recovery law. You can't make a profit from the surcharge.
Correct. That's exactly right, Nick. Exactly right. So, it was a little bit hard for this particular gentleman to understand when I started, saying to him, well, look, if you continue to pass on a 60-cent surcharge every cardholder, you're going to be paying Westpac more, which is effectively what he would do. So the 80K that I've saved him, if he stayed at Westpac, probably would have gone to 100K, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
So cut a long story short, he's now using one of my EFTPOS terminals. And the benefit about using mine as opposed to Westpac is not only the saving, but what the terminal I do automatically calculates and passes on the respective surcharge for the card being used for payment. So it can identify between a debit card and a Mastercard. So that's the technology I've designed within the EFTPOS terminal that I provide.
So that means they're fully compliant and they've got a sort of like, I guess, a zero cost in terms of their transactions with the bank.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly right, Nick.
Yeah. So that must mean there's a lot of businesses out there who are pretty much non-compliant.
Yeah, it scares me to think that, but I have no doubt there are.
Yeah.
So it's probably just as important for the people on the call tonight and those listening, is that if you do, I'll come back to your question. Thank you, Terry. Is if you walk into a business, and please, I'm not attacking coffee shops in any shape or form. I'm a very, very much a coffee drinker in my own right. But if you walk into a coffee shop, and I had this example from someone in Sydney the other day, they walked in and they went to pay for their coffee of $5. Suddenly they're going to be paying 70 cents extra on top. Now, the law states quite simply that if you as a business owner are going to be passing on a surcharge to your client, and here I'm talking here about shop fronts for a moment. So if you've got a shop front and you're going to be passing on a surcharge, you must have a sign visible to your clients coming into your, in this example, coffee shop. So primarily maybe on your front door and near your cash register, that you're actually passing on a surcharge, and it must list individually the surcharge rates that you're going to be charging. Example, EFTPOS 60 cents, Mastercard Visa 2%, Amex 3%.
So you're legally required to have that. If you don't have it, then you can't charge it.
Yeah, and what I will do too is that for those who operate in the online world, you can still certainly pass on a surcharge, but obviously for compliance, to take care of the compliance space, what you must do is actually put on your website, obviously, that you to keep your costs low, you're now passing on the following surcharges and list them there.
So for those online payments, you're still required to have a notice there. You can't just...
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. You just can't have a surcharge waiting for the shopper on your shopping cart.
Okay. So I haven't seen many of those signs around on people's businesses.
No. No, very, very true. And I know for a fact here on the Gold Coast already that the ACCC are out in force going into businesses here on the Gold Coast at the moment. And yes, I know of a business, I think it was 3 weeks ago now here on the coast, that got slapped with, I think it was a $95,000 fine.
Wow. And because they didn't have the sign, or they were just charging the wrong surcharges?
They were both A and B, Nick. They were both.
A and B. So it's, combination.
Yep.
Okay. So the easiest solution is to be within the law is just not to pass on the surcharge.
Yeah, or B is to sort of consult with someone who's obviously needing to be licensed under the law.
So you need to be licensed for this?
Yeah. I had to seek licensing like the banks have got. I'm not as big as the banks, obviously. So yeah, I had to obtain a license as the banks have got to be able to provide what I do. Yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So we're talking about physical premises, like easy to see, say a coffee shop or Mitre 10 or one of those businesses there. What about service-based businesses, like a lot of people here that operate either from a home office or operate virtually that are taking payments? Maybe how do you put your sign up? How are you compliant with when that's the case?
Yeah, great question. What I always suggest people to do in that sort of situation is let's go. I say more is better than less. So in that example, what I'm saying is that you have a Facebook page, so you put it up on your Facebook page that you're passing on a surcharge. Obviously, your website. Maybe make a note on your LinkedIn profile. So, in other words, sort of saturate your social media sphere that's what you're doing. According to what I've studied in the law, is that if you do that, you're compliant with the law.
Okay, so there's an opportunity for people to know because you published it, you've got it out there, and it's compliant. Can you get those? Is there a standard notice you can download from a government site anywhere, or because I think there is for refund policy. But,
look, there is not. However, I have one here with me. So with the EFTPOS terminals that I provide specifically, they come out with one. So we supply that with a machine. So when you get the machine, you've got an A4 sign that's already pre-populated with your rates on it. So it's ready to go.
So it's all there, yeah. So with the machines, like typically what those EFTPOS machines get supplied by the banks or sort of third parties,
Yeah.
and they come with a fee, don't they?
Yeah. So sorry, I'm not attacking Westpac again, but
But we'll go ahead anyway.
so if you were to apply for an EFTPOS machine with Westpac, take into account their monthly fees that they charge you, and also the transaction fees that you'll be paying for the transactions going through. You could be looking, on average, 15, 20K per year.
Right.
Minimum.
Yep.
So,
and I know that when I've looked at those machines there for my business, which is a virtual business, I couldn't see the sense in renting one of their machines and paying all the fees, even though the likes of say Stripe or PayPal have higher transaction fees. It was still a lot cheaper than using the solutions provided by the banks.
yeah, absolutely. In going into this business, as I said 4 years ago, this is still sort of a struggle I have even today, is people knowing that someone like me exists. Because not only, do you have to take time out of your business to go to your bank, you then may have to sit there and, wait for an appointment that, runs over. So you've got all those factors of time. And, that's one of the things I learned in business, in banking itself, that if you were to give a business owner a document yay thick for an EFTPOS application, you might as well open your mouth because it's going to get shoved down there pretty quickly by them. So what I've done is I've taken all those sort of things into context with what I'm doing now. I've sort of streamlined all my processes accordingly. And that is what I do is if someone needs a facility from me, whether it be one of the four I provide, is that I provide a 2-page PDF document listing the information I require. And then what happens from there is that's then copied and pasted into the application sent to you for signing. So I'm about trying to streamline not only your time, but also obviously reduce all those cost factors.
Actually, seems like you struck a chord. Karen says yes, and knowing that we exist as a common business, a common problem amongst us in small business.
Yeah, absolutely, Karen.
Yeah. So let's get back to these online payments. I've got a question there from Terry. She says she only does online payments using Stripe, don't have any physical storefront. What sort of alternatives are there for someone like her?
Yeah, good question, Terry. I'm just going to speak generally now. And without knowing anything further, I've had a lot of people using Stripe and the PayPal's online payment gateway solutions. Pardon me, that in the event of that particular person using, say, Xero as an example, Xero accounting software, what will happen is that I have been able to assist them with a payment solution within Xero, whereby it still gives the client the ability, once you email them a invoice through Xero, to actually still have the ability to pay by credit card. So what it's doing is it's sort of Xero's sort of integrating into their website and sort of formalising the invoice, sending the invoice out for payment, payments received, and then goods are sent out. That's option A. Option B is I certainly do provide an online payment gateway solution whereby the surcharge is able to be on-forwarded to person shopping. On average, you're looking at per transaction around about the 2%, just rule of thumb.
Okay. And so that will take into account the card that they're using and
yeah, run through all the verification of the card.
Yeah.
Security and the whole lot.
Okay. So let's play sort of devil's advocate here.
I was afraid of that.
Yeah. and look, some people would say, well, why bother about the surcharges anyway? Why not just increase your prices by an average amount and then not bother about charging a surcharge at all?
Yeah, great question. One that's posed to me many times every day. So my response normally is, okay, if you increase your prices, fine. A majority of your clients will stay with you because they know you and us humans don't like change. So what actually happens is that if you increase your prices, you may drive people to your competitors. So you're actually going to be giving your competitors let's say a free ride. In that sort of situation, I suppose it comes back, how can you keep continually increasing your prices? Because eventually, people will start. What's the thing that we sleep with just about every night under our pillows? These things. So people are now becoming more savvy in their shopping, more savvy in trying to get opinions. So, someone will find out that, pardon me, in Martin's example, someone may find, well, I can buy a Bianchi bike at, 3 suburbs away, $300 cheaper than what Martin could sell it to me for. So it's within realms, but it's something that I would certainly keep under, let me say, strict reins.
So particularly you're talking about a commoditized world where, when you're buying a commodity, whether you buy it from one store or another store, often doesn't make any difference. At that point there, people are often shopping on price and convenience.
Yeah, it's, I always firmly believe, even in the banking industry, that there was more to a particular deal or a purchase than price alone. Because, when you're going out to buy a brand new motor car now, something that's worth considering is, the servicing costs. Are you going to get 5 years, free servicing on a brand new BMW or whatever, or you're only going to get 2 years on a Toyota? So there's sorts of factors you've still got to take into account as well.
And I suppose, if you think about the surcharge as well, from a psychological perspective as a business owner, if I saw $20,000 sitting in my end of year accounts as bank fees, I mean, every time I see the bank fees anyway, it's like, where did these come from?
Yeah, look, good. Thanks, Nick. I've probably got people thinking surcharge, oh, look, it's probably $5 per transaction, things like that. Actual fact, it's not. So if I can I just want to just harp back just for a moment back to an EFTPOS terminal, and I know we may have a lot of people here in their online businesses, but I just want to use this as an example. So primarily what I've got is what I call rack rates. So these are the standard rates that I charge. So if someone is buying, let's use Myer as an example. Let's say they're using one of my terminals. Someone is in there buying, lady's in there buying a dress for $100, paying by a Mastercard. A rough rule of thumb, my surcharge on that transaction would be, bad example for Myer, but let's use it, would be no more than $2 on a $100 purchase. So I want you just to turn your mind back, because I know you've probably seen a lot in the press of late about banks removing ATMs across our country. But if you were to go into your local club or hotel tonight, go to the ATM inside the door and get a $20 cash out, most times you'd probably be paying $4 surcharge for getting that cash out of that ATM.
I know. That really irks me. It's like
Yeah, so I firmly believe you've got to compare apples with apples and not apples with oranges.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that those terminals, actually, how do those terminals charge so much money?
The ATM?
ATM machines, isn't that a surcharge?
No, that's sort of, they call that a service cost. That's the official word for it.
Service cost. So what if I was in business and said that I was just charging a service cost and not a surcharge? Surely I could do that, couldn't I?
Oh, so you've got that $130,000 poked away, Nick, haven't you?
So it doesn't matter what you call it, right?
No.
So in terms of, it's easy to understand it from the point of view of physical goods and physical transactions, and I can certainly see it from a point of view. If you've got lots of transactions going through, then you're going to have lots of surcharges going through, which mount up to be sort of quite significant. For big, if you've got bigger transactions, does it work out to be about the same?
Look, no, it would be a larger savings. So once again, comparing apples with oranges. So what I normally do is that with some of the larger businesses I'm dealing with, and this is no detriment spoken about anyone in smaller businesses, but with volume of transactions going through, that's where we've got a little bit of, let me say, leeway in my pricing model and what I can actually price things at for that thing. But just something else while I think of it that came to mind that's quite pertinent when we're talking about payment solutions. And that was, I don't know if anyone has seen it of late, it's been in the press over the last couple of weeks, Commonwealth Bank have been having outages through their solutions. So very, very important to understand, and I'm not going to attack the CBA. However, one of the things that was very important to me in designing, especially the EFTPOS solution that I provide, is that I can guarantee 100% reliability at any time, anywhere.
So yours are not going to go down?
No, I've got a business, believe it or not, out the back of the Kimberleys over in WA, about as remote you can get. They've had my terminal in operation for 2.5 years now. Have not had one outage yet, and I'm in regular contact with them.
So even though the banks are going down, your machines are not going down?
Yep.
All right, that's probably sort of fairly significant for a business, because some of those bank outages, they're becoming more and more prevalent. I mean, there's been Commonwealth, there's been National Bank of Australia.
Yeah, Westpac had it too.
Westpac as well too. So yeah. So what about? And I suppose we've got to raise it too, because I've been in the process of opening up bank accounts, and one of the because I deal internationally as well too, I make a lot of purchases internationally, and I've got international clients as well. We're dealing here in Australia with the surcharge laws. When you're dealing sort of internationally, how does that play out as well? Are we governed by the same laws when we're sort of charging or not charging surcharges, or can we do what we like with overseas customers?
I'd like to say you can do what you like, Nick, but you can't.
You might say that.
Yeah, so effectively, the responsibility comes back to where the payment's being collected. So in other words, it's being collected here in Australia. So with you accepting international cards, whether it be through your website, whether it be through a recurring payment solution, or whether it be through an EFTPOS solution, it's roughly at least 1% on top of what my standard rates are.
Okay, so even though we're dealing overseas, we're governed over here. It doesn't matter what country's paying us, we're still governed by the law here.
Yep.
Are we also governed by any laws overseas? So like we're transacting with US clients, for instance, is there any impact on us over here as far as compliance and fees are concerned from that country?
No.
No? So it's only here?
Only here, yeah.
Okay, great. And if you happen to have an entity in Singapore, you run your business from Singapore. I'm probably getting a bit too far outside of things at the moment, but we do have a client who runs an outsourcing business. He runs it from Singapore, operates in Philippines. We buy and supply from him from and to him in Australia.
Yes.
So
governed by the laws here.
Yeah, so it's all here. All right, well that makes it sort of good and clear and simple. So, I mean, the way I see it too is we're heading towards a cashless society. And I think our current situation at the moment has really sped up that process, because people are, and certainly, the shops that we're dealing with are preferring now, contactless solutions and cashless solutions as well. So I would imagine the banks would be rubbing their hands with glee with that there, because we could expect some greater profitability there. In fact, the banks now are more profitable than they have been. Isn't that the case?
Yeah, exactly right. So in case you don't know, the banks here in Australia are amongst the most profitable banks in the world. So they have been for at least the last 15 years that I can remember anyway. So, yeah, the last study I did, 97.4% of all transactions here in Australia are done by card. And it's a good point you make, Nick, because yes, we're being directed down that cashless path in doing our shopping, our transactions. You know, I have read several articles stating that we will be a cashless society here in Australia by 2023. So, you know, here we are towards the end of 2020. So it's not too distant. So I suppose what it also does, it opens up, the conundrum about the rise of cryptocurrency, which is start to really shake the tree a little as well. So we just talking about crypto for a moment. I've got that on my drawing board at the moment, so I'm tossing around a few ideas there at the moment. So I would not expect that I'd have anything in the crypto field available until perhaps towards the end of next year at the earliest.
Well, it's interesting looking at some of that crypto as well too. There's a fish and chip shop down in Southport where you can use cryptocurrency to buy fish and chips, and using it through a Mastercard or Visa, solution. So it's the same sort of tap and go with it as well.
Yeah, there used to be a crypto ATM. I don't know if it's still there in Surfers Paradise.
Yeah. So so there are interesting complexities, and who knows how that's going to affect things legally as well too.
Yes.
And I think there's a whole new area. I mean, it's probably too new at the moment for it's not really in mainstream yet. So you've got early adopters in there. You've got people that are trading crypto and speculating on it, but it's not really mainstream yet. But when we think about it, when we're using Visas and Mastercards, that's cryptocurrency. It just happens to be controlled by institutions, global institutions, and institutions here. So, yeah.
True.
One of the things I was thinking of that, and a comment about the cashless society as well, is that with more and more transactions being transacted, via card, electronically and digitally, then the opportunities for, what's a good way to put this? For maybe getting away with charging too much in terms of fees. So like if you just run down and just say, I'm just going to charge a higher 3%. All of that stuff now is being recorded in some way, shape or form electronically. And so how easy would it be for, say, the ACCC to go through bank transactions looking for businesses that have overcharged the transaction fees?
Very, very easy. That's primarily part of the reason why that business I mentioned earlier to you was actually caught. So they were caught in two reasons. Was the ACCC doing that investigation you spoke of through transactions had been going through. And secondly, someone else just had been, this business had this person there on the wrong day. So this person was very well informed about surcharge laws. It wasn't me. So they were very well informed, and they knew exactly that was untoward, not lawful, and they actually made a complaint once I went outside. So those two things led to this investigation and that fine coming through.
Right, and once a complaint's made, then the government or the government authorities legally obliged to investigate it as well.
Absolutely, exactly right.
Yeah, yeah. So interesting times. If you were to give any last words of advice for businesses in terms of their transactions and cash, and even just doing business, in terms of what you've seen, in your years in banking and in business, what would be your top two or three things that you would give?
Yeah, firstly, if you have a loan, whether it be an investment loan for a property, a home loan, a commercial loan on a commercial property, if you have not met with your banker over the last 12 months, I'd make that a priority. Because I know from my days at Westpac that if the client didn't sing out about, hey, give me a better deal, we would continue to charge you at the current rate. So no doubt there are people perhaps on this call that are being charged the incorrect rate at this stage, with rates falling to the lowest levels probably since I was born, a few years ago now. So that would be, so I would strongly recommend that. And then secondly, with regard to your payment solution. So whether you've got an online payment gateway, EFTPOS terminal, a combination of both. Also, it's worth going or making time to talk to your banker and have them stick their neck out and prove to you why you should be banking with them as opposed to vice versa. Because as you probably know now, there are people like me in the marketplace. Our economy now, yeah, we've gone through a complete renaissance, if I can call it that, from what's happened in the banking world. So it's deregulated now, so there's so many more players in the marketplace. But thirdly, if you're in the market for a loan, and let me just say you've gone through a broker, and brokers provide an excellent level of service. If your broker has come to you and said, hey, Nick, I've got the loan for you and your wife. We're going to source it from Westpac. Before I would be putting pen to paper, I would be, one, asking the broker why Westpac, and two, I would be doing some extra investigation myself to find, do a little bit of cold calling to some other financial providers, just to make sure that that particular deal from the broker from Westpac to you is the best. Because what has happened, I'm not going to say all brokers are tarred with the one brush. What's happened previously, many, many years ago now, a broker would have directed your loan to Westpac because he or she was going to get their best kickback themselves from Westpac as opposed to CBA.
Yeah. Look, I've been in the mortgage broking for 10 years as well, too, and I know exactly that's what happens. I know there's compliance laws against all that sort of stuff happening, but we're also dealing with human nature as well, too.
Yeah, absolutely, Nick. Yeah. Absolutely.
And so it's always good to be prudent with it.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. All right, well, look, we've got time for some questions. We've got a few questions in the chat here as well. So got one here from Ron, who says that he paid for an online printer in Australia for his work with a credit card. So he paid for it with a credit card, and there were 2 charges debited from his account. First payment is for the invoice. Then he said the second payment is a surcharge from their parent company in Europe. They claim that's part of their terms and conditions. Is this a correct practice to add a second charge to your card?
No.
Simple answer.
To the best of my knowledge, no, it's not. So that printer company, yeah, sure, could have charged their surcharge, but how they've actually done that, in my eyes, is incorrect and immoral. So, Ron, I hope that you've only purchased that printer recently, but I would certainly take it up with them. In my eyes, I don't think that's correct.
Yeah, it seems.
In my eyes, that invoice should have showed the cost of the printer plus a card surcharge, total amount payable. Because
certainly not 2 invoices or 2 charges.
No, definitely not.
All right. So Terry says, I got a 1.5% reduction on our interest rate on our mortgage after 1 phone call and 2 emails. Well worth the effort. Probably the best return on investment for your time.
Absolutely, Terry. What I would do is to anyone else there too, that I would perhaps just make a diary note, say for yearly, just to follow that up. So just make a yearly call to your bank to say, right, it's been 12 months since I've spoken to you or you've spoken to me. What's the best rate there? And just put them to the task. Make them earn your business rather than them take your business.
So I guess the status quo, if you don't question the status quo will be they're not going to come, like being a profitable business that are looking out for the shareholders and maximising profits to our shareholders. Right. Why would they come to you and offer you something lower unless they knew that you were going to be moving or that you were ready to do something?
That's right. Yep. So true.
Yeah, I guess that's that old thing. If you don't ask, the answer's always no.
That's it.
Excellent. Anyone else got any question here?
Excuse me.
Mark? I've certainly learned a thing or two from you today, Mark. I always wondered sort of quite what you did, but now I've got a very good understanding of it all, and there's some things there that I need to go and have a look at in our transactions as well too.
Would it be okay if I ask the question, Nick?
Go
Yeah,
ahead,
sure,
Steve.
Stephen.
So Mark, if I understand it, you're a disruptor, because obviously there's the banks are out there doing what they're doing. I'm still not 100% certain, as I understand, where the problem lies in other than the fact that if I'm a vendor and I'm not charging the right amount, or I'm charging more than I should be, then I'm contravening the law. And if I put a blanket 3% on and that covers everything, then I'm overcharging. And if I put the minimum on, I'm undercharging and I get charged the bank. So I understand the commercial risk there, I guess. I'm not sure as a consumer, because I don't understand the law, that I'm going to arc up about 50 cents on a cup of coffee. I'm just going to go and buy the coffee at another shop. What's to stop the banks from just, once they figure out that this is an issue and there's going to be the ACCC going in and doing all of these investigations and it starts to hit, the media, what's to stop them from just replicating your model and putting in a terminal that does the calculations? I would have thought that that's a fairly straightforward.
Very good question, Stephen. It's something that I've wondered for quite a while myself. I believe the ANZ is dabbling into EFTPOS terminals at the moment that provide surcharge as well. They seem to be, from my market research I do, and I do that quite often, they seem to be about the only bank, looking at that factor. But what I did learn in my banking days with Westpac for that length of time is that EFTPOS terminals were like the cream on the cake for the banks. That's where we made our money, and I mean big money. So primarily, they're a little bit hesitant in changing something that's providing them their cream on their cake. But it's very, very interesting now, with obviously the Banking Royal Commission having concluded for now that there's still some findings from that still haven't sort of filtered through to the banks and to their operational divisions. So I do believe that maybe when that does fully filter through, that may lead to some sort of change that way. But yeah, it's a case now where, as I said earlier, surcharge is a very, very, let me say, it can be a very good vehicle for a business, but it can also be a very, very, let me say, damaging vehicle for a business if it's not handled in the right way and in the right context. So, I do think that some of the banks will start to look at doing this anyway. Did you have any other question there, Stephen?
Yeah. No, thanks. Thanks, Mark.
You're right, Stephen.
Ron, you've got a question there.
I'm still trying to get my head around this, because...
Don't worry about that, Ron, so am I.
Because really, the way I said, the question of surcharge is, do I charge or do I not charge? Yep. And you're saying if you do it the correct way, you can benefit from it. But I'm just still trying to work out what is the correct way.
Yeah, okay. If I can just open that up a little bit further, please, Ron. You have an online business, or you have a shop?
I have an online. Well, actually, it's an online business, but I did do trade shows when they were available.
Yeah. Look, a little bit difficult to do those at the moment.
So our payments have been online payments, and also at the trade show. I use Square at the trade show.
Yeah, great.
As quick payment.
Yeah, if I can just turn that around for a moment. So I'll just break that into two parts. So let's say that you're going to trade shows now and you're using Square. Square is an excellent device. However, what I found with Square is that last year there was a conference, 3 speakers speaking here on the Gold Coast at an event. I went to try and buy their books before they spoke. and I was in a queue, 10 people in front of me, and I hadn't moved in 15 minutes. I'm thinking, what's going on? And the 3 speakers had a Square device each, and what they're finding is they're having trouble in getting connectivity. So I'm not saying that Square's, every Square device is going to have connection issues, not at all, but that's something to consider. So what happens is that when people use my EFTPOS terminal as a solution as opposed to Square, my EFTPOS terminal can identify what particular card someone is paying, which card people are using. So if they're using that one there, it will pass on an EFTPOS surcharge specifically for that card. With that one being a Mastercard, it will pass on the Mastercard. So the technology I've built into this EFTPOS terminal enables it to identify which card is being used and to apply the relevant surcharge for the card. So that's in the trade show context.
Is it that's touch and go?
Yeah. I have tap and go, the whole use your watches and your rings and everything, all the technology. With the online payments, so with that is that we set it's presently just on 2.1% that we pass on surcharge. So people say, gee, that's a bit high. Why my rates, and once again, I go back to the analogy comparing apples with oranges. My rates are always going to appear, people say, oh, I've got an online payment gateway with Westpac. They only charge me 1.86%. My rates are what we call rated rates. So what that means is that it's a rate as well as what's built in there is some service costs as well. So that's why we don't have primarily in most cases any monthly service fees. So once you meet a threshold of spending through your online payment gateway, we pass on the surcharge to those who are shopping, that the gateway itself is there will be no cost to the business for it. So that's why my rate is always a little bit higher with the facilities that I provide. So I hope, did that?
Yeah, I can understand that. I suppose from I'm thinking is I don't ask for that rate because a rate changes according to whether we do a tap and go or whether we do a manual entry. And the other, and quite often when I'm out and around and I make a sale, I just put that onto Square on my phone.
Yeah,
just as so
yeah.
They're all, they do charge us different rates for different methods of transaction.
Yeah, so that EFTPOS terminal I spoke of, no matter if you tap and go, will charge the respective rate to the respective card, no matter what card the person's shopping with. So that's the technology of it.
So that's a separate unit to an app.
Yeah, it's just like, sorry, I'll use the example again. Just similar, but not the same as when you actually go in to buy your groceries at Woolworths or Coles, so it's similar to that device. Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, Mark, can I ask, I'm trying to understand the where all this comes from. So if I choose not to pass on the surcharge as the vendor, I wear that cost.
Correct.
Right? So when I so I can set my terminal up, or can I set my terminal up so that the surcharge is zero? Have I that ability?
Yes, you do.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. So when I buy the terminal or when I place the terminal in my store, there's some back-ended software that says, what charge do you want to apply for this particular transaction?
Yeah, exactly
and
right,
that's one only, you can only have one of those. You can't have multiple.
No. So what you can do with the surcharge, a couple of different ways. So when we're doing an application for whether it be a terminal
Yeah, I'm not talking about your product. I'm talking about, let's say, Westpac or CBA.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yep.
okay, sure, sure.
Because I understand your technology, and it sounds that it's adaptable, and it recognises the transaction. I'm talking about, let's say I don't want to do that. I don't want to buy yours, and I'm happy to have Westpac's, even though what the thing is. But is there a way of putting a zero surcharge on that and me wearing the cost? And if I choose not to, is it just I can only have one option on the surcharge amount?
It's a very put it this way. I'm going to answer that two ways. First way is that if you had an EFTPOS terminal with Westpac now, really what you're doing now, if you want to use it this way, is you're effectively wearing the surcharge now by Westpac debiting your business account every month for the rental transactions and so forth. So you are certainly able then to go to, it's a very, very dangerous game to play, because what can happen is that you can provide a receipt to someone that you're charging a surcharge to. And then you can have someone who has bought something the same from you where you've absorbed the surcharge yourself. Suddenly,
and how does that happen? If I've set it up, if the system's set up, how does one person come in and be charged the surcharge and the other person not be charged the surcharge?
Yeah, what can happen is that you can, especially, I'll have to use my terminal as an example now. With my EFTPOS terminal, those in, if it's your business, you can actually, you've got the ability to override the surcharge software in the terminal. So in other words, sorry, just excuse me. Pardon me. So effectively what you could do right now is someone could come in right now and buy whatever from you, and they will pay a surcharge. You could then go in to the next person who's come in who may be spending more money with you every month than that previous person, and you could actually waive the surcharge, and that surcharge amount, whatever it is, would be debited to your business account. The dangerous game I see that you'd be playing there.
Sorry, Mark, that wasn't my question. Sorry, I understand that. I understand what you're saying, but that wasn't my question. My question was, at the terminal that I have, can I absorb that? Can I just make a business decision and say, I'm going to absorb all of this, I'm not going to charge the surcharge, and so therefore I'm not contravening any laws?
Correct.
And all I'm doing is I now see that as a business expense. It's just a cost.
Yep,
if I choose to charge the surcharge because someone is using an EFTPOS card as opposed to a bank card or a Mastercard, then the bank charges me a different rate for those. It's a 60 cents transaction, or a 2% or a 3%. So my option then is either to have your terminal or have a minimum 60 cents for every transaction, and then I just wear the difference between the 60 cents and the 2%.
And what the bank charges. Yes.
Right. Okay. All right. And that's pretty much it.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right. Okay. All right. Now I understand. Thank you.
So can I just clarify? Is that the question, Stephen, also of whether those machines are actually programmable? Can you program it? Can you program it for different surcharges? Or can you program it at all? Are you just doing it manually, deciding, this is going to cost $4, I'm just going to add 30 cents onto it? Or does the machine actually do the calculations?
Yeah, the machine does the calculations for you. So all your staff basically do is, if you're in a Gloria Jeans or coffee again, you would just put in the amount that the person is spending with you. You indicate what card they're using, and then the terminal will actually allocate the surcharge based on that information.
But a Westpac one, for instance, you can't do that with.
No.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. All right. Well, I think we're at time. So thanks very much, Mark, for coming in and sharing your knowledge, your expertise. It's certainly been very enlightening for me, and there's been some good questions and comments coming through on chat as well. So thanks very much for coming in.
No, anytime, Nick. Loved it.
Excellent, excellent. Now, for those that are here, we do have a prize draw today, I believe. Is that right? We do. Excellent. So, what have you got for us, Mark?
Unfortunately, I've got a $40 gift voucher, so whether someone would like a $40 Dan Murphy's voucher, a $40 Woolies voucher, Coles voucher.
Excellent.
Does it have a surcharge on it?
Surcharge free, Stephen.
Excellent. All right. As ever, the actually win it. You have to be here to win. So those that are here are in the running for it. I'm hoping for Dan Murphy's. My name's not in there. All right. Let's spin the wheel and see who's the lucky winner tonight. And that looks to be Stevie. Is Stevie here still here? Yes, Stevie's here. So
Stevie, could you pop your email address into chat for me, please?
That would be very good. All right. So to get in touch with you, Mark, what's the best way of doing that?
Look, whatever's easier for each of you. So my mobile number, if you just want to have a chat, is 0419 762 478. I'll tell you what, I'm tongue-tied. I'll just put it in the chat. That might make it easier.
All right. So you're happy for people to phone you, email you?
Yeah, that's it.
Bush telegraph.
Yeah.
Whatever works.
Yes, thank you.
Excellent.
And there are no dumb questions in my world.
Certainly not. Well, there is in the banking world, but you're here on the other side of the fence now, so nothing's done. All right, well, look, thanks once again, everyone, for coming along tonight. Just a reminder for tomorrow. We have office hours tomorrow. That's at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. That's a no agenda, open discussion for you to bring your questions, or if you have a topic that you'd like to discuss about your online marketing strategies, an app that you want, app recommendations. Feel free to come along. It's just an hour tomorrow morning. The link is in chat if you want to come along and register for that. So that office hours, and make sure you bring a coffee because it's that sort of chat. We're not going to charge for the coffee, and there'll be no surcharges tomorrow either. And for the next one of these business owners smashing online, it happens every Tuesday at 6 o'clock. So you can register for it now, I believe the link is in chat. It is in chat right now. So feel free to register for that. I think next week, off the top of my head, is about Facebook and online paid advertising on Facebook and online marketing. Don't quote me, but I think that's what it is, but we will confirm that when we put out the information over the week. I'm going to miss you, Martin, if you're not there tomorrow, because you always bring good discussion questions. All right. What else did I have? The other thing I meant to say is to save the chat. Just remember to open the chat down below. And once you've got it open, click on the three dots on the bottom right and click save. And that way you will get all of the links that we shared in there today. So once again, Mark, thanks very much for spending your evening with us tonight.
Anytime, Nick.
And thanks everyone for coming along. And I look forward to seeing you all again either tomorrow or next week. Go out and have a great week.
Okay. Thanks very much, everyone. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Business Owners Smashing It Online podcast. You can also find me on social media and online. Just search for Business Owners Smashing It Online and Nik Cree, spelled Nikree, all one word. If you like this and want to hear more, subscribe now. Until next time, don't be a slave to your business. Get your business working for you.